chime in and ask questions. And here we go. All right, welcome you guys, for everybody watching on the replay and, eventually you guys on YouTube and everybody here. Thank you for coming to Astrological Coffee Talk with Eric. And don't really drink the coffee anymore. I actually had some pineapple and ginger and all types of stuff tea. Had bromelain helping me with all this mucus. But anyway, Jupiter in Cancer. We're going to break this down. This is the chart. It comes in on June 9th at 5:03 p.m. Eastern. This is 2:03 p.m. Pacific. And the transit is for a year, okay? We're going to go through all ascendants. This is the chart for this time on the West. On the West Coast. The ascendant sometimes can shift or whatever, maybe to a Scorpio, to a Virgo if we were looking in Florida or New York. But the way that it's placed here in the middle of Libra, it may not move that much based on the longitude and latitude, but we're going to go through all 12 signs. I'm not going to move it, so you'll have to visualize it as I explain it, because I don't want to have to move it every 2 hours, because then that will change the degrees of some of the planets. Okay, so we're going to zoom in, and Jupiter in Cancer is up here in the 10th house. Okay, and that's when it ingresses in. And what's so funny is that the astrology book that does the transits and everything for the year actually had 5:02 p.m. Eastern. And that had it still at 29 degrees and 59 minutes. So I just moved it to 5:03 and then boom, and 2:03 Pacific, and then it entered in. So sometimes even the quote unquote so-called professionals, even in published books, have it a little bit off. I won't out the book and say what it was, but I just thought that was really fascinating because that's the first time I've noticed that. So that's why I bring it up. What we do have to look at for this case is the chart ruler, okay? And we're dealing with Libra. I'll only do this for that just because this was the chart of the time. And, when you're seeing the moon, this is right after a full moon. So this still has that full moon, right before a full moon. Because the moon is at 3 degrees Sagittarius and the sun, I believe it's 19 Gemini. So basically, the next day is a full moon. So it's in that full moon energy when you have this ingress, okay? Now, we do want to look for the Libra chart ruler. Just so you know, when we get to the Coffee Talk members chart, you always start off the rising sign ascendant, right? And Venus would be the chart ruler of Libra, right? So you know that the Venus is going to be close to the sun, right? And so we go and we look for the Venus, which is Tara, right? So we got the Venus and Taurus at this time, which is very interesting. And in this case, in the 8th house, along with the Uranus. Remember, Uranus, you guys, will be leaving soon after this. So we've got coming up in May, as I told you, the 24th, Saturn enters Aries. You see that already here. And it's squaring, excuse me, oh, this fan. It's like I'm hot, but then I got to turn off the fan. So squaring the Jupiter and the Mercury, as well as the Jupiter and Mercury squaring the Neptune. Okay, so that's going on down here in Aries, and we're going to get to that in a second. But what's fascinating is that Saturn goes to Aries May 24th, June 9th, Jupiter Cancer, and then what we'll be talking about next Saturday, Saturn Aries. But then in May's Coffee Talk, we will talk about the Uranus transit. Remember, this is the year sneak previews. The Uranus on the 7-7 portal going into Gemini until, I believe it's till like January, but it won't go back into Gemini. And when it goes back in, will be April of 2026 for 7 years. Uranus is the 7-year itch, the midlife crisis, okay? So let's look at our friend. What is Jupiter? Jupiter is the great benefic. Jupiter is the teacher, preacher, professor, guru, shaman, your wisdom, beliefs, philosophies, biology, and finance. It's the husband in a woman's chart or the husband in a same-sex couple chart. Jupiter is also management. It can be the law, it's expansion, abundance, fortune, and luck. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, the crab. It's at home in Sagittarius and Pisces. The exaltation, I believe the real reason why it's in Cancer, because Jupiter is all about learning and wisdom and beliefs. And who's your first teacher? Your mama, right? That's why it's exalted in Cancer. So it's very soft there. It's very nurturing and caring. It's going to give you that safety and security that you will feel at home learning. Having it in the 10th house, especially for this Libra rising, as we go around to all of them, what's really fascinating that stands out, it's conjunct Mercury. Just in general, so you guys know for a rule, when you have Jupiter in the 10th house, and let's say this was someone's natal birth chart, you do not want to share your wisdom, beliefs, and philosophies at work. If you just have like a regular mundane job, if you are someone that is a professor or a teacher or some sort of healer or guru shaman, then that is what you're called to do. But this is where, sorry, just checking to see if somebody's in the chat. This is where you could actually be in a situation where people can get very turned off by you being overly, sharing your beliefs and philosophies at work. Remember, the midheaven could be anywhere from the 8th to the 12th. I've only ever seen it in 8, 9, 10, and 11. That's based on your longitude and latitude close to the equator. I had a client born in Scotland that had the midheaven in 8th house. And I was so excited because it was the first time I ever seen that, But when the midheaven is in the 10th house, then the midheaven is the indicator of how your soul vibrates in public for your career. The 10th house itself is the workplace, work environment, public image, legacy, the government, the authorities, the relationship with your dad. Okay, so this Jupiter coming in hot off the presses is conjunct Mercury right off the bat. Mercury in Cancer, conjunct to Jupiter, right? Jupiter's the higher mind. Mercury is the analytical, logical mind. There's the door, there's the plant, there's the light switch, right? It's always processing, analyzing, assessing. Jupiter is going to say, why do we have doors? What is the meaning or the benefits of a light switch? Oh, yes, it blesses me so it illuminates so I can read at night, or what, you know what I mean? So that's kind of the thought process with Jupiter. And when it's in Cancer, a lot of things that you may experience at this time is sort of a boom in education. And because it starts this summer, right, you may have more people signing up for summer school. June 9th on the East Coast, they're still in school. They end the school the end of June. Some states out West Coast and Southeast, some of them end that first week of June or the end of May. We end in Arizona the end of May. Jupiter in Cancer is also, I think, going to expand. Let me go check the chat real quick. Is going to expand our education. Okay. All right. Nobody is there. Okay. So that's one thing that I think is going to be interesting is how I really think it's going to be more of the divine knowledge. And I think maybe some of the sacred wisdom and knowledge, like the esoterics, like this stuff. Okay. One thing that you have to know about Jupiter, it also can expand consciousness. It wants higher knowledge and wisdom. Cancer, the first water sign, is about our home, our family, our safety, security, associated with the mother. It's the hometown, home, life. Cancer is a cardinal water sign. So it initiates, but remember, the crab is very sensitive. It has the hard outer shell to protect itself. So it is deep in its feelings. Jupiter will expand that deep inner knowing for this year transit. And in Cancer, I think the sensitivity, people take sensitivity as a bad word nowadays, and it's not. I want you guys to really, understand that and get that. Being sensitive is how you can get knowledge in terms of how you're feeling emotions and energies. We may have some Cancers here today. I don't know, since we haven't shared the big three. But, if you have a Cancer Sun, Moon, Rising, this transit is all for you. It will be very beneficial for the Scorpio and Pisces risings. And there will be, and as we're going to get ready to talk about this square, when you have squares to Jupiter, it's not a regular square. It's not so bad. Okay, because squares also are opportunities for growth if you're willing to do the work. But squares can also have that agree to disagree, like an opposition, but it can be kind of bombastic, explosive. arguments, fights, disagreements. Squares can be very challenging, but when you work through the square, like if I see in your natal birth chart, if there's a square, one of my first questions to ask you is, did your parents get divorced? Not all squares do. My children have a square, and it was just that, I wanted to have my twins, and my wife was like, I literally got it in the last moment. Okay, so, you know what I mean? But then once we were pregnant, she was like, oh, I'm excited and happy. But that's that indicator, right? When the sun and moon in a square in the birth chart, you have to ask your client or friend or yourself or family member, did mom and dad figure it out and work it out, or did they separate and grow apart? Because it can be either or. So I say all that because, number one, Mercury conjunct Jupiter in Cancer, you're going to be aligned with your logical thoughts and your expansive thoughts. And so there's going to be a big emphasis this summer starting in June and this is, actually late spring, right? Because summer starts June 20th or June 21st. So you're really going to see where people may be really, I think there's going to be probably a real estate boom. You know how things have been really down. They probably will announce, one small minor adjustment to the interest rates. They said they wouldn't do that much this year. We'll see. But that could be where a lot of people move this summer, or a lot of people are purchasing land or property or real estate. Okay. And I think you're going to see a big movement where people this summer decide they're stepping out of school and people are going to get back to homeschooling. The Jupiter squaring the Saturn, which, is always a good thing. I wish that we could get back to homeschooling because I feel like even though we have good schools out here, the school system, public, especially public school, it's not good. It's very unfortunate. But when you have Saturn and Neptune in a conjunction, remember the exact conjunction will be in February of 2026 when they both ingress together. They won't get exact in this time because Neptune, moved in on the 30th of March, and then Saturn's moving in. We'll talk about it next week, May 24th. So they won't actually ever touch right now. But Saturn squaring Jupiter, right? What does Saturn want to do? Saturn wants to restrict things, okay? It brings discipline, structure. It's the government, the authorities, your bones, your lineage, right? Saturn is delays, limits, fear, stress, anxiety. But when Jupiter, and you always, in aspects, you want to see who's got like the higher ranking. Saturn in Aries is in its fall. Jupiter in Cancer is exalted, so Jupiter's going to win out. So Jupiter wins this battle of the square. So what Saturn will do is in Aries, it's going to say to Jupiter, hey, before you expand, can you just pause and not be impulsive? Before you teach, can you just make sure that everybody's got their head up and is listening, right? Saturn restricts Aries from being the fastest moving planet. In astrology, Aries and Gemini are like the two quickest planets and, signs, just blah, 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 moving. The ram, I've told you guys, right, it's actually accident prone because it's visually impaired and it rams its head into things for spatial awareness, okay? So when you have Jupiter squaring Saturn, there can be some issues around, I'm sensing there could be some stuff this summer around weapons in the homes. Maybe this is the government saying, hand over your guns. I mean, listen, in this day and age, could you honestly be surprised about anything happening? No. You know what I mean? So I think we have to just open ourselves up to understand that anything's possible, right? Now, we're going to move along so we can get to the other ascendants, but I'll say that in terms of the major aspects of this, when you're having the Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries, there's this pause, but then there's this dissolving, right? And so this is where I'm saying Aries and cardinal signs in general, but Aries, Sun, Moon, risings, and even at this time with the square to Jupiter, we still have got to be careful of the drugs, alcohol, escapism, and pharmaceuticals, and we need to slow down. Don't be so quick to react. Don't be overly impulsive and aggressive and assertive. Jupiter, though, is going to say, hey, listen, are you considering your family? right? Are you building, right? Saturn is construction and buildings, right? Are you building dwellings that, the whole family can live in, right? Now we're having more, and let's be honest, just because of sometimes financial needs, right? My mother-in-law lived with me for a while. She, had moved out. She's still in the same state, but, you're seeing multi-generational homes. Now, across the globe in other cultures, people do that on the norm, right? In Western society, more in America, everybody spreads out and separates. And it's really kind of not so smart. I know everybody, oh, I'm independent, this and that. But when you think about really saving and building a legacy in your foundations and your wealth, the grandparents help the kids and help the parents. The grandparents also benefit being around children and dogs because it can slow the aging process and keep their minds active and keep them busy. Right? The children get the wisdom from grandma and grandpa, and then the parents have a built-in babysitter. So multi-generational homes, I think, are going to come back stronger, especially for this next year. And who knows, maybe even during this transit of Saturn in Aries, or just at least for this year with the Jupiter Cancer. But this is an aspect that we've got to consider. And when you have the Mercury squaring Neptune, you guys, that's where that's challenging. Because this is where the communications cannot be clear. There can be some deception. There could be some fog. This is where we're like, hey, I don't know what's going on with my finances. And just so you guys know, as the kids say, I want to get the bag, right? Jupiter in Cancer is not the bag. Jupiter is really good in so many signs. Leo, Aquarius, Sag, Pisces, right? It's fall in Capricorn, but Jupiter in Capricorn, if you put in the hard work, I've seen so many clients with Jupiter Capricorn, that can get you a lot of money. You just have to be disciplined, structured, and organized. Jupiter in Virgo or Gemini sometimes can be more challenging than it is in Capricorn, where in its fall, just the debilitated, right? But Jupiter in Virgo, you can get the herbalist. Jupiter in Gemini, you see we have it now, right? Until June 8th. It's expanded gossip, but data and information. That's why if you notice, you guys, whether it's social media or the regular media, everything is just rapid fire. News stories last for 5 hours, not even a full day now, right? That's Jupiter Gemini. It's like, this happened, that happened, 30 things happened, right? I don't know if you just saw that CEO and his wife in a helicopter crash in New York City the other day, right? Maybe a little mysterious, who knows? They were in legal battles, who knows? But the point is, there's a lot of things going on. And I think Pluto and Aquarius, which we still see, here, that we're dealing with aviation as well, okay? So the main thing that you need to think about at this time, even for the Libra risings, is we're on, right on the verge, the day before a full moon. So you're in that energy of illuminating the Jupiter in Cancer ingress and transit, and a lot about our communications, our wisdom, our knowledge. So that actually does coincide and play with the Jupiter in Cancer, right? And so that'll be really fascinating as you have this, Sagittarius full moon. It's going to be Jupiter is the ruler of it in Cancer. So it's also speaking about rules, regulations, law, right? Our wisdom, beliefs, and philosophies about our homeland. And guess what? We're getting closer to, right? This is going to get closer. Think about America's chart as a Sag rising, and we're getting closer to Jupiter and Mercury being, probably would be close to a conjunction to the July 4th independence, the Cancer sun. Okay, so this is also going to be talking about maybe some restrictions in the homeland for Americans. We may have people watching from other countries, but, we're in America. So that's something to consider. That's the 8th house. Okay, so the 8th house, for Sag rising, Jupiter and Mercury, right before a full moon, it could be illuminating things around resources. The 8th house also does deal with emergency sudden events. I'm not into any fear mongering, but when I see Neptune square Mercury, Saturn squaring Jupiter, Mercury, I don't know. Does anybody get any power grid vibes from this? I hope not, but I just, I don't know. Okay. Mars in Leo, right? It's so nice as it's getting ready to go quickly through Leo, getting ready to head to Virgo, April 18th. You guys can all breathe easy. Cardinal signs, any of the Cancer signs. Jupiter comes in to clean up the mess that Mars created for all these months. So April 18th, Mars goes into Leo. Okay. Before we go to the Scorpio rising, any questions in terms of this original chart and for the Libra rising people? Remember, the eighth house is emergency sudden events, and having the Uranus there and Venus, this could be about a stock market crash or financial stuff or insurance or, things like that, right? Because the eighth house is FBI, CIA, IRS, the letter boys. It's financial stuff. It's how other people's resources. It's inheritance, right? Jupiter Cancer, this may be a time for you guys to make sure for your children, grandchildren, you have life insurance policies, okay? Make sure you're dealing with the health insurance, right? This is a great time, Jupiter and Cancer, the best time to create a family trust, a will, all these things, okay? So we're going to go to Scorpio rising. Any questions or any thoughts? And remember, Venus and Taurus, that's indicating to us that we've got to be thinking about our possessions, our values, and money. And for the Libra risings, that's definitely some interesting financial stuff, okay? Any thoughts, you guys, or any questions for this chart and then even the Libra risings?
So, you said that the Jupiter in Cancer is not material gain.
Not as much. I've seen it in chart after chart. In terms of the financial wealth, you'll get more from the Capricorn, Sag, and Pisces. Sag, it's very dogmatic. Pisces is very spiritual. Even though Jupiter is expansion, abundance, and money, in Cancer, the wealth will come through how you are nurturing and caring for others. So this is good for anybody, like, if you are an astrologer or spiritual reader, any of the kind of like teaching, divine wisdom and knowledge, that can do well. But like if you were just like, oh, I work, and I've said real estate and finance, like, stuff like that. Cancer can be associated with that and banking, properties. But like if you just worked in, I don't know, retail, or you just worked in, I can't even think of the careers. It's not always going to be the expansion of wealth. It's more the divine wisdom and knowledge.
And you mentioned the eighth house because that's, anyways. So you said something about it being in the eighth house, and so when I was thinking about that Cancer eighth house,
that's for Sag rising, America's chart. Yep.
Yeah, so I was thinking like, okay, this probably is more of I was thinking more of spiritual, growth.
For America and Sag risings, yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, that's beautiful. You're right. And not just that, because it will expand probably the esoteric and occult knowledge, but also what's the eighth house? Not just the hidden occult knowledge, but the hidden things underground, crystals, gems, herbs, more of the ashwagandha, silajit, burdock root, spirulina, right? More of the, mullein leaf, mugwort, all the things we were talking about, lungwort, like Janice had mentioned, getting into even what Melissa talked about, even getting into ayahuasca or microdosing. That for America, because America's charts are Sag rising, and for Sag risings, we'll get there in two more because we're going to do Scorpio next. Eighth house, yes, that could be a big thing for America, Sag risings. Okay?
Yeah.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Eric.
Huh?
Ashwagandha. Can you explain that?
Ashwagandha is just I guess an herb or a root, and it can be very beneficial for your health. You've got a bunch of things: burdock root, ashwagandha, silajit. I know ashwagandha can benefit men but it also helps with women balance. I think the progesterone. I'll have Ami Diaz on Monday, and she'll be talking about all that stuff. But
Okay.
in terms
Thank
of your
you.
health and herbs, hold on.
Thank you.
Sorry,
This
just go ahead.
Erica, I was going to say ashwagandha is what's called an adaptogen.
Adaptogen, yes, thank you.
It sort of balances out whatever's out of balance. It sort of feels its way through your body and says, okay, a little bit too much yin, a little bit too much yang. It's a balancer.
And it can work with your hormones, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Hormone central nervous system.
Ah, very beneficial.
Ashwagandha is really good for people who have problems centering themselves
Okay.
and problems with insomnia.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Janice is our resident herbalist here. And, Janice, you can even put your information in the chat if people want to seek out some of your wisdom and knowledge. And same with you as well, Melissa, in terms of what you do. Okay. And also in the email chain, listen, you guys, I created Coffee Talk for us to be able
Thank
to
you so
share.
much.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thank you, Janice. And thank you for the question, Cheryl. I created Coffee Talk for us to share, teach, and learn. And everybody here, all of you have such a wealth of knowledge. I am so impressed with everyone. And it's good for us to support one another. This is what it's about, building community. And forgive me, my community is getting close to launching. It's just, trying to get the payment mechanisms and all that stuff. And we're using Buddy Boss, but it's going to be awesome. So that's a place where Janice and Melissa can come in and talk about herbs and plant medicine, and people can share, because I've got all these different groups and categories: crystals, astrology, creativity, where you can come in and Katie can talk about her music, and Mama Miss can come in and put up posts and stuff about her poetry and comedy. It's for everybody. And that's my, real intention. Sorry, I'm just trying to check to see if somebody's in the waiting room. To really have this community so that everybody can just learn and grow. Okay, so I don't know.
could that Jupiter and Cancer in the eighth house could be like growth of spiritual community as well? Or
Well, no, we'll get when it gets to the 11th house, and we'll talk about that, because that's going to be more community. The 8th house is more hidden and private. Okay. But we'll get there when we get to the Virgo rising. That will actually be the last one. So let's get to Scorpio rising. So Scorpio rising just shifts it, I guess actually not counter, but clockwise, and that puts the Jupiter Cancer in the 9th house. So for Scorpio risings, this can be an opportunity, right? And then that's the Aries and Saturn, the major aspect in this chart, then goes to the 6th. So we have the 9th, 6th house square. And don't forget, we still are going to have this North Node in Pisces, right? The veil is still thin. The health axis is still very important. Pluto Aquarius, Virgo South Node. Okay. So just, remember that, because the nodal axis we still have to July 2026, and Pluto in Aquarius to 2044. So there's still an emphasis, you guys, on our health. And even during the summer, right? Please don't put the sunscreen on your body. That's how you wind up getting the skin cancer, right? If you want to allow the sun to really integrate to your melanin, and this is for my European people, my African people, melanated, doesn't matter, everybody. We want to start to sun gaze at sunrise and at sunset. And then it lets through the retina, lets the melanin activate and process in your body. So maybe get up at like 5 a.m. in the summer, right? It's so hot, it's hard to sleep so late anyway. At least it is for me, but just in general, and do a little sun gazing at sunrise and sunset, and it really helps you. The, putting these sunblocks on you, there's a lot of chemicals in them, and it's really baking and cooking your skin. So Scorpio risings, okay? The Jupiter, Mercury in the 9th house. This is going to be about publishing for this year for you guys, Scorpio risings, right? I'm talking to myself. This is a lot about, education. Some people may want to go back to school, vacations. but it's also about expanding your truth, your wisdom, beliefs, and philosophies, and maybe reconnecting to what dad instilled in you from childhood or what dad taught you. Okay, that's just, something to think about with the Jupiter and Mercury there. It's really a great time for publishing, and God knows, I hope I can finally get this book done before the end of April, and maybe it gets launched when Jupiter's in Cancer in June. That's my prayer. It's just, I'm only one person, and, it's a lot. But that is kind of like, for me, what I'm thinking about. But remember, having this Jupiter and Mercury there, this is where what people can be like, 2025 to 2026, I'm going to take a trip 50 miles or further away from home, right? I need a vacation. But I also want you guys to think about, if you're of that age, the ninth house is grandchildren. This could be spending time or teaching or go to visit your grandchildren, right? For Scorpio risings, anybody watching on YouTube. So this is really an interesting energy, but the square to the sixth house, there's some things about your daily routine with the Saturn and Neptune here that are kind of like, well, there's going to be some in your daily routine, you may have to kind of pause. There may be some confusion where you're not necessarily, oh, look, there's an edit there. I got to recorrect that last minute before it goes to the presses. Oh, look, I said Mercury was exalted in Capricorn instead of Virgo. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just speaking about, let's say, my book. If I made that mistake, that's where you would see the Mercury square Neptune. I'm giving you that real life example for Scorpio rising. Does that make sense? So those are things to consider. One thing that I'm trying to really get with this Neptune Aries, it's taking away the veil, the illusion, confusion, and deception from Pisces. But in Aries, it's softening the Aries energy. You won't feel that assertive, initiating, aggressive energy of Aries. It's going to make it a little bit more spiritually minded. Okay, it's going to mean like, so maybe for Scorpio risings, you pray and meditate before you get to writing, or you need to pray and meditate before you go on your trip, or there could be something restricting you in your daily routine that guess what? You can't go on that vacation. So these are things to contemplate. And then it's also right before the full moon. So you're going to have the Gemini sun and the Sag moon in the second house. So there's things being illuminated about your family, Scorpio risings, at the start of this transit. And remember, you take a snapshot of the beginning of a transit, and this is the story for the full year. Of course, things will play out, from June of 2025 to 2026 that are changing things. But just like if you guys were to go on a trip tomorrow, you can cast the chart. I'm leaving my home for a week on, April 13th at 12 p.m. noon. You cast that chart. That will show you the story of your week-long vacation. Does that make sense? So you guys can use this in your practical life, right? You're leaving to go to get on the airport. You leave your house at 10 a.m., right? You don't want to necessarily you could do it from like when the plane is supposed to leave, but I would do it just from like when you're leaving your house, because that's the beginning of the trip, literally, right? Because you're on your way to the airport. So you could cast a chart for your vacation, and that tells you the story. And then when you come back, go check out the chart and you'll see how the vacation went, and I bet it will coincide really well with the chart. So that's what we're doing with this, right? This is June 9th all the way to, I don't know the exact date, but June of 2026, a year transit, okay? And within that year, Jupiter will have I think just one retrograde. So, for the Scorpio risings, those are things to think about in terms of the daily routine. Saturn and Neptune even being conjunct, this is where you have to be careful, and why I recommend, listen, I'm not a doctor, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night. If you have pharmaceuticals that you have to take for your daily health, please take them. I'm not advising that. But if you don't normally take them, and the drugs and alcohol, I would just stay away, especially when Saturn and Neptune are conjunct. But even this whole transit to 2039, Neptune in Aries, remember Aries rules the head. And so you want a clear mind. Neptune is the pharmaceuticals, drugs, escapism. So if you do things, you're going to have extra confusion in the cabeza. Does that make sense? So I really just would say, and anyway, you don't want the alcohol. It shrinks the brain. I know we all like, maybe a drink here or there and a glass of wine. But I actually stopped drinking, I don't even know how long it's been now, for a while. And I haven't been a heavy drinker for forever, but I don't miss it. And, new research and new studies come out all the time. And I think in the last year or two, they released that studies show alcohol shrinks the brain, along with, yes, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, I'm 100% in agreement with that, but could you just sort of give me your insights and maybe, who was it that, Melissa, with the plant medicine. What are your thoughts along those lines? Do you lump plant medicine in with pharmaceuticals and alcohol?
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. And I'm sure Melissa wouldn't either. I'm going to say something quick, and then Melissa, you can answer. When you're doing the micro dosing, right, and you're doing mushrooms or you're doing ayahuasca or, different things, a lot of things were used to help people. I don't know if you guys know, even ecstasy and acid, the FBI made it illegal because they were showing too many benefits for people, helping them with Alzheimer's, helping them with epilepsy, helping them with, mental conditions, maybe even dementia, and also CBD and THC help with dementia. You know what I mean? So, no, I don't. But I would just say, especially in Aries Sun Moon Rising, just be careful. Or even an Aries Rising where, or let me think, who's got the Aries 8th house? The Virgo Rising. I would just be very careful because we don't know how the Neptune and Aries will play out in this cycle. We haven't had it since the 1800s, 1860s to the 1870s. Last time we had this was 1875, right? So the planets are lined differently. The world is different. So even for to 2029, the conjunction to Saturn, it could play very differently. So even at least till 2029, after Saturn leaves, I would just be extra careful with anything that's taking you out of your normal state. Melissa, do you have any thoughts about, or want to share your opinions on that stuff?
Yeah, I'll try to concise it down. So it's a slippery slope. Anything can be turned into an addiction. Anything can be turned into misuse. Yep. And not using it for it as a tool. With that, so I've seen individuals sit in ceremony and they've been sitting, on the mat over and over again, having all this ayahuasca or having these huge doses of psilocybin, for example, or bufo, 5-MeO-DMT. And they're chasing a dragon, but you're not doing the integration with it. Or individuals will step to it and want quick results like pharmaceuticals relieve your pain. They numb your pain. They expect that the plant medicine is going to just snap its fingers and there you go.
Right.
Mind you, there are points where you can find relief. However, you have to do the work. Yep. And when anyone comes and sits with medicine, I tell them the next 3 weeks after, sitting with a ceremonial dose of whatever, that you have 3 weeks of still in this bliss of medicine in a way. However, on the 4th week is really what lessons are you taking and implementing into your life? Because for my truth is these medicines are just reminding us we are the medicine. They're just tools bringing us back to ourselves, who are the medicine. And I pray there's a day that we no longer need the medicine like we do today. And
Yes.
one of the biggest things with like Hape sacred snuff, it's 9 times stronger nicotine content than what you find in cigarettes here. And it's a very slippery slope of addiction as well with that as a nicotine content to start using it outside of intention in that. The only thing that separates a sacrament from another substance is your intention.
Okay.
Thank you. That's deep. Yeah, and see, this is the type of expertise, Melissa, and I love for you to be a part of my community once I launch it, because, you know, it's becoming very cool and fashionable, but people need to be safe and smart. And also, you don't do things for a quick fix. You do need to sit with it and respect anything in a spiritual way. And that's going to be our sacred grace. So we're really moving slow on time. So we'll leave Scorpio. We kind of already touched on the Sag. And remember, that's America's chart. And this will be in the 8th house, squaring the 5th. So there'll be some things around education and the children with the Saturn and Neptune in the 5th house and the Jupiter and Mercury in the 8th house for Sagittarius risings. And for America's chart, and also the moon on the ascendant. So, you know, I'll just quickly go with that there's going to be some things around the marketplace that will be illuminated. And, you know, we're also going to have to think about expanding our consciousness. And America itself, there's probably going to be a lot of the moon on the ascendant in Sagittarius. There's going to be a lot about the moon in a mundane chart represents the people. Sagittarius is law and order, and then having Jupiter and Mercury in Cancer in 8th house, there may be some big changes coming up from June 9th through that year about our laws, about things, about our property and real estate. I really recommend family trusts, your will and testament, things like that, and even life insurance policies for the children, okay? Let's get to the Capricorn rising. So for Capricorn risings, right, that's Cancer, Jupiter will be in the 7th house, okay? And that means the square will be to the 4th house. Saturn and Neptune for Capricorn rising in the 4th house, you have to watch out for flooding in the home, but you want to increase your spiritual discipline. Now, with the square to Jupiter, Mercury, that means you and your partner, Capricorn risings, can have some disagreements about how we do this. Oh, you know, I want to do a sound bowl and meditate with the kids, and then your spouse is like, I'm not really feeling that, you know, or da-da-da-da, right? You're dealing with the marketplace to your home, Capricorn risings. This may be a time where you are like, I'm feeling like I need to move, right? Me and my partner, or you're just getting together with someone, Capricorn risings. This is where this year you may meet the husband if you're a woman, you know, or same-sex couple. Like, so seriously, Capricorn risings really can consider an expansion of knowledge with their marriage partner, you know, and this is also about expanding things business-wise for you in the marketplace, you know, maybe selling a home or moving to a new home or buying a second home, you know, but there's definitely something in play for the Capricorn risings, and even having that moon in the 12th house where you may feel like I need to leave whatever state or country I'm in, even if it's just for a vacation. But you're gonna also want to tap into your dream life in the spiritual realm, right? So Aquarius risings, okay? So then we're taking the Jupiter Cancer down to the 6th house. You know, this is your health, your daily routine, your work. So you may find that you need to, 6th house is digestion, right? And our sickness, illnesses, daily routine. So Aquarius risings with Pluto in the ascendant, your health is going to be really good for this year, you know. And I think Jupiter doesn't like being in the 6th house. It's a mild malefic house. That house does better with Saturn or Sun there, or even Mars. But Jupiter's like, you know, I'm the positive bully of the chart. I'm optimistic no matter where I'm at. So even in the 6th house, the one thing that can be in play with Jupiter Cancer, if there was a situation of a separation or a divorce, Jupiter Cancer 6th house can deal with divorce and things about debt, but this can expand where you could get a raise This is where you can get the bag, Mama Miss, for Aquarius risings, right? Because Jupiter in the 6th house can expand your daily routine or work, and even bring in some more money. But this can be your divine wisdom and knowledge and teaching and service to humanity. So Aquarius risings, this may be a big year where you guys are expanding your service to humanity, but you just got to watch out where what you're kind of having some challenges with the Aries Neptune square in the 3rd house. That can be kind of difficult with the younger siblings, with your reading, writing, communications, where things that you're writing are not being received clearly. So there, anytime you're seeing Saturn, Neptune squaring Jupiter, Mercury, there can be misinterpretations. There could be some stress and fear that you got to transmute out, right? And this is for all ascendants. There can just be a little bit of like, I'm not sure, or I'm little, so this is where sometimes you may have to have the faith. And remember, I told you Jupiter Cancer is exalted, so it's going to win over Neptune and Saturn and Aries. And this is where sometimes you got to push through and be like, you know what, I'm following my dream no matter what, right? I'm feeling, like this is where we really need to stay in our feelings and our intuition. Speaking of the intuition, right, at this time, the Lilith is going to be in Scorpio, right? So that is really where we want to tap into our intuition in a big way, and trust what we're feeling, especially down in that root chakra, which Scorpio is associated with. So there'll be a lot of wisdom at this time where you can get clarity in the bathtub or in the shower. And Jupiter Cancer, that year, this would be a big year for everybody to, get the Celtic sea salt or the Epsom salt and get the crystals in the bathtub, do some journaling, positive affirmations, and manifesting in the tub or the shower, okay? Pisces risings, okay? So that Cancer, Jupiter is in the 5th house, squaring Saturn, Neptune, Aries in the 2nd. So for Pisces risings, you're going to have the North Node on the ascendant, and you're dealing with the Jupiter and Mercury in Cancer in the 5th house. So that could be around your creativity and hobbies and your children, and family values, this is where you don't want the family values in the 2nd house, Saturn, Neptune, to then restrict your own creativity or what you want to bring the divine wisdom and knowledge to your children. Remember, 5th and 9th house, you guys, are always dealing with education. Usually the 9th house is the higher education, master's, PhD, but just the deeper worldly expansion of your beliefs and philosophies. And the 5th house is always the high school, college years. But it's just, things that you learn, but it's also the ancient history and past life karmas. You can see the past life energy here. So for Pisces risings, this may be remembering that you in a past life were this divine, medicine woman or this, spiritual healer or a guru. This is a time where Pisces risings may want to be like, hey, Eric, I heard you do your astrology course, or, I want to study with you one-on-one. Okay. But just Neptune, Saturn, Aries in the 2nd house for Pisces risings, be mindful that you may feel a little bit of lack around your speech or your finances. You got to just transmute that out and just push through it. Neptune in the 2nd house, money can come in easily and quickly, and it could go away easily and quickly. Okay? So now the Aries risings, the Saturn and Neptune on the ascendant, and the Jupiter, Mercury, Cancer, 4th house. Well, Aries risings, this is a long transit for you, with this Neptune and Saturn. But just think, in terms of the square, Jupiter to 4th house, this could expand. You could do an extension on your home. You could literally be in a place where you are buying a second home. You could want to open up your own homeschool or a daycare center. This is where, you could be like, your children, maybe you're having another children brought into the home, or you're bringing extended relatives moving into the home, cousin, aunt, grandparent, somebody's moving in with you. But this is actually a really good energy for the Aries risings about the relationship with their mother too. This is really positive. Maybe you get into the lineage. Obviously, right? What do they cancel? What is it? Ancestry DNA, and they're selling off everybody's stuff, and it's like kind of crazy with that. So maybe you do a different means, or maybe just do the research the old-fashioned way. But this is where your emotional mind can feel like it's wanting to expand its wisdom and knowledge. And with Jupiter Cancer there, if you do not have a water feature, Aries risings, I would get a water feature for your home and really increase your sound bowl or spiritual discipline and practice. Okay, that's going to really be positive for you. And plus, you're already having the Pisces North Node in your 12th house. So, definitely have at it. The Taurus rising. So now with Taurus rising, we're doing the Jupiter in the 3rd house. So this is about your skills, your self-efforts, right? This could be expanding your wisdom and knowledge, in terms of on social media, sales, marketing, advertising, but there's something that's pulling you back into the subconscious and in the bedroom. So this may be a time to increase Taurus risings, your journaling, so that you can heal different things from the subconscious programming. And in the bedroom, increase your spiritual practice, right? Saturn, discipline. Neptune is connecting you to your dreams, Taurus risings. I know my wife's a Taurus rising. Her dreams have been like wild lately. She saw some giant dogs last night that turned into humans, you know what I mean? Like whatever. So like you can like literally Taurus risings. I'm going to be interested to keep an eye on all my Taurus rising people, because Neptune to 2039 in the 12th house, adios mijo. The dreams are going to be off the chart. So really, take my advice with that dream book. This is the time, and those Aries crystals. But think about the Jupiter in the 3rd house. This could really increase your writing, your communications, and just maybe a new car in the local community. And maybe some sort of expansion around, maybe there's a new cousin you're reestablishing something with, or something new you're teaching or writing or communicating about. But yeah, that's always a good thing. Remember, the 3rd house is our skills, you guys, our self-efforts. And if we're Taurus rising and we still have our mothers alive, this can expand the connection with mom, even, connecting, or if mom's passed away, just honoring mom, maybe setting up an altar or something, for
Wow.
Taurus risings,
A lot of that is going on with me.
Oh, see? Okay.
Mom and I are like really, I'm more connected right in here. What else did I noticed Taurus rising is I'm where the Taurus kind of lays back and analyzes and
Yeah.
then moves. I have this real urgency to just not wait, to communicate whatever it is that I believe in, more on the social media aspect in that arena, I should say.
Well, that's right now because of that Mars and Cancer in the 3rd house. And so that energy may shift a little bit on the 18th as it goes into Leo, 4th house. And Taurus risings, you guys are the regal kings and queens in your home, right? Like your home is like, this is my royal dwelling, right?
And I just moved, so all of that.
And that Mars going in there, that should be quite interesting, and you'll see, even for this, you'll still have the Mars in Leo, right? It'll still be there up till June 9th and for a good part of June before it goes into Virgo. Goes into Virgo, I think, towards the middle or end of June. So, this will be an interesting, time for you and all the Taurus risings out there. But definitely, I like that. And the Jupiter will come and clean up any mess that Mars made for you in the 3rd house. Okay? And it's really good because it will really bring the abundance, because it will be there for a full year. Okay? So now our Gemini risings, this Jupiter's in the 2nd house. You just came off of Jupiter being in your ascendant, in the 2nd house. This is the bag. Again, this is where it is, Mama Miss, where for the Gemini rising, because the 2nd house is money itself and how we earn money. So Jupiter, it's going to be through your deep inner knowing. The 2nd house is also intuition. your self-worth too. So this is where we Gemini risings can really focus on their self-worth and knowing that what they have to say, it matters, right? That divine wisdom and knowledge, the safety and security. This could be a time to even, reestablish for Gemini risings something positive with their fathers or just their family in general. But they've got to be aware, right? There's a square with the 11th house, Saturn and Neptune with their groups and the internet and organizations. So you got to, just kind of pause, Gemini risings, before you, are on the YouTube and the Facebook and this and that. I think with the Saturn Neptune, watch out for any deception from fake friends, Gemini risings, but also be positive and optimistic that, if you kind of pause and you're not as impulsive, that I think that there could be some spiritual connections over the internet or any groups and organizations, but Neptune, I think with Saturn will reveal, as this Jupiter will reveal, any groups or organizations or fake friends or older issues with older siblings for Gemini risings where you'll see through the veils. See, Neptune in Aries is going to bring more clarity than with Neptune in Pisces. It put a veil over us, the rose-colored glasses, where we were deluding and lying to ourselves. Neptune in Aries is like, I can see clearly now that the Neptune Pisces fog's gone, right? So it's a lot of that, all right? So just really think about that. The Cancer risings, okay, you got the Jupiter on the ascendant. And now that Saturn, Neptune is in the 10th house. Jupiter and Mercury on the ascendant for this year for you guys, Cancer risings, it's self-love. It's your I am energy growing. It's your outer mask, your appearance. Watch out though. Could be a little excess weight on the hips and thighs, Cancer rising. So keep your daily routine going with the, the walking, the Sag moon there in the 6th house. It's letting you know, hey, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, do your exercise, do your walking, take care of that. But just remember the Jupiter on the ascendant, people will Cancer risings for this year, people are going to come to you. They're going to see that you've got the answers, right? Now, the only thing is with your public image and your career with Saturn, Neptune here, you may deal with a little bit of haters at work. Some people trying to take credit for the work you're doing or some people kind of trying to be like whatever. But at the same time, you may be out in public taking a lot of pictures. Film and photography is Neptune. This may, Cancer risings may write the screenplay and do an independent film. Or you may be like, I want to start a photography book or be a part of a photography club. Anything's possible, but I think also when you have Jupiter on the ascendant or in the 5th house, and this goes back to the Pisces risings and Cancer risings, if you're not planning on having children, then take the precautions because this could be, that transit can indicate pregnancies. Jupiter transiting the 5th or the ascendant can indicate a baby. Cancer, Pisces risings, okay? So please be aware of that. If you want babies, then hey, go for it. If you don't, then take your precautions and just be mindful. Because especially, definitely for the Cancer, but especially for the Pisces risings. That Cancer, 5th house, Jupiter. Oh, and I don't encourage gambling, but yeah, you could do scratch off a lottery, gambling, they could do well, okay? Leo risings. You're going to have the Mars in the ascendant, right? You're going to have the Jupiter in the 12th house. Really getting into, your dream books, your subconscious programming. You may want to go on a big trip. You're like, oh, I want to go to Peru. I want to go to Costa Rica. That could actually happen. But you may find that you've got this divine wisdom and knowledge. Because remember, 12th house is hidden talents. We got to bring it out and share it with the rest of the chart. So Jupiter is where you may bring that out. You may tap into the dramas in Palestine and in Ukraine and in the Congo and all over the world, right? You may tap in and get some deep visions and dreams about things for the Leo risings, Remember, the Saturn and Neptune are going to be in the 9th, right? So spiritual discipline. And I think really, this is where what you're doing in your bedroom and your dream game can be aligned and can push you to expand or grow your wisdom, beliefs, and philosophies that now you feel like, you know what, I want to start to share this with other people. And maybe it is about publishing. The Saturn could give the Aries the discipline in the ninth house for the Leo risings to write that book. But it may be something that's more of independent film, photography, or a spiritual book. You know, I really think you're going to start to see more Aries artists, creators, filmmakers, photographers, poets, rappers. I'm interested to see, you know, the Aries, the Leo rising creators and just the Aries creators during this transit. But having the Jupiter, Mercury in the 12th house, you're going to be tapped in to your dreams, the subconscious, and just the overall collective. You know, so this is the therapist, the psychologist. You know, that can expand a lot for Leo risings. All right. And last but not least, the Virgo rising, you know, you're going to have the Cancer in the 11th house. Again, another place, Mama Miss, this is your hopes, dreams, and wishes. The 11th house is extreme wealth. This is Jupiter 11th house is in its planetary joy. This is the best bag ever. Okay, Virgo risings. Remember though, Saturn, Neptune, 8th house could be an inheritance is what gives you the bag. And this is unfortunately for Virgo risings where we can see the end of the father's life. So hopefully that's not the case, you know, especially because I got a child with a Virgo rising, but I ain't going nowhere. I'm here for 3 digits, but, you know, just giving you an example. But it also could be where Virgo risings, maybe there's an expansion in your spouse's wealth. Maybe there's a sudden raise or promotion, right? But just know with Jupiter in the 11th house, you will be the super social networker. You will expand your wisdom and knowledge. Virgo risings very easily could get into, I'm going to be the numerologist, the metaphysics, the astrology, human design. I'm going to be the Reiki master. All that stuff could come up for Virgo risings. And I think one thing with the Jupiter Mercury here, and remember Mars in the 12th house, watch out Virgo risings for any overspending. And, you know, you want to really have the positive intention so you don't have the negative dreams of Mars in the 12th house. But I think that the Virgo risings could do really well with, you know, networking and increasing their wealth. So any questions before we get to the Coffee Talk members chart? Which we'll still have enough time to, you know, get into that. So that'll be good. Any thoughts or questions just with this overall chart energy? And remember with the Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio, the intuition will be on high, but really feel it in your gut root chakra. When you get those goosebumps in your arm, listen to it. And this is for every ascendant. You know, whatever house you have the Scorpio in. I mean, Scorpio risings will be super intuitive this year from June 9th, you know what I mean? But just wherever that is, and just know, even manifesting in the water can be a benefit. Jupiter, Cancer, Mercury, Cancer, North Node, Pisces, Lilith, Scorpio. Oh, yeah. If you never took a bathtub in your life with crystals, maybe this is the time to start. It's not bad. You know, get your Epsom salt, Celtic sea salt. People put essential oils in a tub, whatever you want to do. You know, but I just want you guys to know that Jupiter, Cancer, I really feel that we're going to have an expansion of homeschool, real estate, divine wisdom and knowledge. Like Mama Miss was saying, it will lead to, I mean, especially in America, the esoteric and occult knowledge, and you know, for like Melissa and Janice, the herbs and plant medicine, because we live in America for Sag rising, right? So that's going to be really big. You know,
Yeah, that's coming.
Yeah, it's coming up strong. Yeah,
it's coming across real strong, like the mother wisdom. That's what I was saying.
Yes, it's the sacred. That's exactly what it is, Mama Miss.
That divine feminine wisdom coming in, you know, more of the plant knowledge and more of the home healing or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and then what's going on too with them, like so much stuff coming about, like how the medications in the system is like just poisoning us.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of just stuff coming out where people are are going to make more room for time at home and making that home sacred.
No,
You see what I'm saying?
yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. And remember, with the Sag rising for America's chart, the Pisces North Node will be in the 5th house. We're going to need to increase our spiritual practice in our home to take care of the emotional mind. When you have Pluto in Aquarius, the Pisces North Node and Virgo South Node, it is screaming to you, right? Please take care of your physical health and your mental, spiritual health, right? This is the time to increase our fruits and veggies. Jupiter Cancer, summer, beach, grounding and earthing in nature. Get yourself in the ocean. Get your feet on the sand and the beach. It's really going to be, and remember, we're like walking batteries, right? You will eat less. Why do you think we eat less in the summer? Because we spend more time out in the sun. Because you're getting charged. That's the food. That's the real nutrients, right? I mean, if we're really honest, we're more of a mixture of frutivores and omnivores. And I'm not saying don't eat meat. If you eat meat, that's fine. But I would decrease it definitely in the summer and even for this transit. Okay? Pisces North Node, because the one thing the meat does, no matter whether we're, European, Asian, Latino, African, whatever, the meat does create mucus in the body. So when you eat more of the fruits and the veggies, right, the veggies kind of sweep things along, and the fruit is the H3O and gives you the proper hydration. And then if you mix this with like a CBD and a little, plant medicine or this and that, or the different herbs that Janice was talking about, right? You get your Silogite, your ashwagandha, your soursop, all these different things, sea moss, iron and magnesium. Do you realize we are all iron, magnesium, and calcium deficient? Like bigly? So like we have to be maniacal, intentional about our health with Pluto and Aquarius to 2044, Pisces, North Node, Virgo, South Node to July 2026, please. Okay? It's very, very important. So,
I got
go
a
ahead.
question about that Saturn, and you said Saturn in the 11th house, and about inheritance. Can you?
Oh, no. I was saying that for the Virgo rising because Jupiter, Mercury is in the 11th house and Saturn, Neptune in the 8th. The 8th house is inheritance. Okay?
Okay.
And it's other people's resources. So if you have Saturn, Neptune there, unfortunately, someone, and I want you guys to know, no spiritual person or astrologer should ever predict death, but we can see it in transit. In the 4th house, we can see the ending of your mother's life in your chart. In the 8th house, we can see the ending of your father's life. In the 12th house, we can see the ending of your own life. Usually it's going to be through Saturn, can be Mars, Pluto, or Neptune, and it's specific aspects, not just one thing. So I don't want anybody like, oh my God, Saturn's going to be in my 12th house, will I die? No. It's a lot of different things. But I just want you to be aware of that. So when you see Saturn and Neptune in the 8th house for a Virgo rising, there could be something if the father is elderly or whatever. And remember, the 8th house is emergencies. It's the thin veil between death and rebirth. It's sudden events. Okay? So that's why I just brought that up. And it's also inheritance. Okay? So does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So, but it also could really, Virgo risings could really get into the ayahuasca and meditation and spiritual stuff and, just like the Sag risings. And, the way all this is lined up, I really feel the divine feminine, but in a healthy way, right? Because I can tell you, having boys in 6th grade, last year in 5th grade, we dealt with a lot of sexism. There's this movement to, really make young boys feel like they're not worthy and only acknowledge young girls. And it's not cool. Because when I was a school teacher for 13 years, I treated all ethnicities and all genders equally. So to see a school, and it was we'd be at the soccer games, every mom would be like, yeah, my kid came home crying Friday. You know what I mean? It was a real thing. And I had to deal with it with my 2 boys. I was at the school last year for 5th grade, once a week. It was absurd. So I just want you guys to know, we want the divine feminine and the sacred masculine to be aligned equally. This overcorrection, because of the patriarchal system, has been, so bad against the divine feminine and women because you guys are the portals, right? You guys are the ones that bring in the lives and exist between two worlds, not the men, right? And so it's so important to honor and respect, and that's what's going to start to happen. But it's going to balance out so it's a healthy, not this like fake feminist women's lib movement that is really trying to hurt women and not help women, right? We want to honor women in the way that we should, to know that they are the magic keepers, the wisdom keepers, sacred, that, we are to protect and honor them, right? And so I think it's going to balance out. I think Jupiter Cancer is going to be a really positive transit for that and for the collective. And having the Mercury there, it's softening how we communicate with one another. Now, we can be a little oversensitive at this time for this year. Mercury and Jupiter in Cancer, people are going to be, what did you say to me? You know what I mean? Like there's going to be, but I think overall, if we stay in a Pisces North Node, compassion, empathy, grace, and mercy for ourselves first, and then extend it to others, I really think this is going to be a beautiful year and a good transit pretty much for, all rising signs. Cancer, Pisces, Virgo, Scorpio risings, it may be, more of a bag or whatever, but I think it's going to be great for everybody. And Capricorn risings and Pisces risings, it could be new relationships and new love. And Cancer and Pisces risings could be some new children. Okay, so, and a Virgo rising, it could even be stepchildren. Okay, so just be mindful of that. The 11th house is stepchildren. So maybe somebody Virgo rising gets married and their partner already has a kid, right? So let's get, because we're running low on time, okay, so yes.
I was getting something about funny women.
Comedy, yes, expanding, yeah. Okay, I like that, yeah. With the Mercury and Jupiter and Cancer, yes.
And Jupiter is comical, and Cancer is like people who have Cancer, they're often comical.
Cancer is a very funny sign, yeah.
And the spotlight has been on comedians for quite some time now, or whatever. So
that's a great one, Mama Miss. And you know what? A lot of comedy about their home life. Yeah. It's like, I know if I was to get on stage and do stand-up, I would have 2 hours of material just on my wife and kids. Mm-hmm. Pure comedy. It's like ridiculous. So yes, I like, wow, you're right. That's going to be interesting. So let's